In this video, I followed the Northwest Highway to 100K in 6B6T. At the start, I make my way to the highway as I normally would, having to go through rough terrain and a griefed spawn like no other. This was about 4.5, 5 hours of recording footage. But eventually, I made it to the highway and I fell off. But that wasn't going to stop us. So as we continue, we actually run into our first lava cast. Even though it is only 2K out, it is the first thing that I decided that I needed to show of what was there on the server. Moving on, we ended up reaching the 5K mark. Didn't take too long, other than I will say I started this journey on the 11th and I picked back up on it on the 17th. So continuing, there was a split part of the highway that led to nowhere right there. There was actually a few spots like them. Coming along down the highway, there was tons of spots like this to where I just ran into nothing but withers, and they just did not stop spawning. They just kept going and going. Making our way down the trail highway a little bit more, we end up running into Ricky Gang once again. If you guys watched the last video, I've said I griefed him before, and you guys will see his griefed base in this video actually. So as we continue, because it was empty, I decided to jump down and get me some tools, some food, and some supplies, since now there are trees and it ain't nothing but ruins. So I decided to make me some tools and go from there. As I make my way back up onto the highway, I run into my first sign right off of that, not far off. Apparently, this was Smokey's Falls and aka Mia's boyfriend. I didn't see either of them online, so I just continued. Making my way out, I end up coming across this lava cast on my left. I don't know what it is too much. There wasn't much to it. That was about it. But we just continued along the way, and I eventually found like my first checkpoint. I don't know why my bitrate was so bad right here. I do apologize. I would have showed more, but it was too blurry. Nice little area to come across right there, and right outside of it there was a little melon farm. So I decided to get me a couple melons, and I broke a couple and put them in the chest for whatever player was next. Moving on, we end up running into a freshly made lava cast that was actually just done by this player right there. As I move on, I end up spotting this little trail off of the side. So I was like, of course we gotta go check out what it is. And it took a good second to get down there, I will admit. But we go through and we just keep following this trail. Eventually we start getting to the end, and it led to, done by that player. As we made our way back up to the top and a little bit more farther down, I ended up running into a sign placed that they killed Vale's dog. They didn't say who it was, but if it was you, why would you do that? So we continue our journey along the way, and I don't know if y'all seen it right there on the left, but this caught my eye. This time there was a bedrock one, but I gotta continue my journey, so I continued going. I just couldn't believe that there was that there too. Eventually we end up running into like our first ruins of what could have been a base or what was gonna be a base. Of course, right off the highway, it wasn't gonna last long, but still cool to finally run into a somewhat intact base onto the highway. But continuing to go down just a little bit farther, reading some signs and making our progress, I ended up spotting a diamond pillar. So I decided to go over and check it out and see if there was any way that I could actually get the diamond so I could have better gear other than leather boots. So I see an end crystal and I didn't see the diamonds that were above it. I was gonna go for that one knowing that one wasn't broke, but from there I got one and I decided to make me way better tools than armor. Getting back up onto the highway, Ricky Gang seemed to put some kits out for you, but I actually never ran into no kits along the highway all up until the end of it, but they were empty. As we went down farther on the highway, we ended up running into this heavily player-based area. As the recording, this player right there just placed a sign down the day before. As we went down just a little bit farther, I realized I had this area saved on my main account, and I've already discovered this area. Seeing that over there, it was an illegal portal, and I decided to go and check it out to get confirmation. Sure enough, there wasn't just one portal, there was another, and there was another. I actually used this area and made this obsidian structure with putting carpet dupers down into the end portal. But moving on, we end up running into a couple more signs placed by these players and another little checkpoint area. Nothing too much, but I ended up picking up a kit over there, and I don't even know where I picked that up at. So I ended up throwing that off and reading a couple of the signs that were there. But moving on, I ended up running into the part of the highway to where it actually turned into bedrock. And this wasn't the only spot. I went from bedrock right to obsidian, all the way over to the bedrock highway again, and we ended up running into the mud fort. Of course, we got to go up and go check it out, and boom, it is still intact, surprisingly. I'm sure after this video, it won't be sitting there no more. So let's continue our journey and keep going along the way. Around this point, the highway started to split, and it was not the main highway no more. There was many different highways leading the same direction, but I just took the one that told me to choose this trail. As we rode up onto the 15 milestone marker, there really wasn't much, heavily griefed little area, and a lot of signs. So we made our way around that, and the highway just keeps going up, down, all in this rough terrain. Either way, though, we still made our way and got to where we needed to be. Eventually, we end up running into a ruins of a town once again. And this time, there really wasn't much there other than some lava cast with some little obsidian build. So I decided to free cam and go and check it out. As we continued going down the highway, we ended up getting a sign saying it was ruins of Ricky Gang. Now, like I said earlier, you guys will see what is left of Ricky Gang after I hit it my first time being up onto the server. So from here, we ended up actually getting into Ricky Gang, and this is what was left after I was done, and I did indeed hotspot it at the same time. Getting right outside of Ricky Gang territory, one of my withers were actually still there to show that I was the one that indeed griefed it. Going farther down, I actually ended up running into another one of my withers. I just didn't have a tracer and I didn't see it on ESP, but to show that I was already there and had been there before. From here, I ended up spotting a mob farm right off of the highway, so I decided to go see if it was still intact, and for the most part, it would actually still work if I would have climbed up and fixed the hole that was right there in the roof. But other than that, it was still intact, and that surprised me. I checked the chest, there really wasn't nothing, so I made my way back up to the highway. As we followed the highway more, I ended up running into this big cobblestone dome, and I don't even know what it was used for, so I didn't look into it too much, and I just continued my journey and went along my way. As we made it down a little bit farther, I ended up seeing a netherite build, and it looked like it was going to be some sort of fortress that was right there that seemed to not last long. So I continued my journey along the highway, and something caught my eye right off the side right there. I don't know what it was, so I decided to go in free cam and check it out, and there was a lava casted nether portal. Nothing crazy. I don't know why I looked over here, but I did. But there was also a wheat farm that was heavily destroyed. So this area was obviously known and grieved right after. Continuing, we end up running to the 30k milestone marker, and I run into a player, and he ended up giving me some golden apples. Of course, with my auto gap, I ate one right away, which I did not mean to, and we followed it down just a little bit together, but all the way up until he ended up logging. Making my way down a bit more, I end up running into what seemed to be this construction of a huge obsidian pyramid. There wasn't nothing here indicating that it was being built right now, as I figured the player wouldn't keep the kits at spawn. But this was so big I couldn't even load it in person or on free cam. As we follow the highway more, we end up running into somebody else's dog. Now, shout out to MurphhMC for actually building the dog a little area to sit in instead of in that rough weather, in that rough terrain. From there, I logged off for the day, and I came back 3 days later and decided to finish the journey. Now, when I joined in, I didn't know that the server was having issues to where it was crashing every 5 minutes. But there was some signs here of a milestone marker, which makes no sense because it isn't one of them numbers that there's usually a milestone at. From here, I end up spotting a farm right off into the middle of the ocean. I wasn't gonna mess with it, but I didn't want to sit and eat the golden apples the whole time. So I got some wheat and I made me a few pieces of bread. As we were rolling up on the 35k milestone marker, there really wasn't much here other than what seems to be an Oscars build. There wasn't too much there, so I decided to leave. Eventually, I ended up running into what looked like was going to be some active lava cast, and this wasn't the only little area. There was some more up this way. Also from here, this is where it all started to disconnect and having to reconnect 100 times, all up until Cubasti fixed the server. Well, while I was waiting for that, I decided to befriend the dog so that I would have someone along with on my journey. As I made my way down the highway more, I ended up running into this spot made by Black Frog, with a lot of signs. Nice little hut and safe area for the players that are following the highway just like I am. And from here, we disconnect once again. As I loaded back in, I followed the highway more, and I ended up running into a griefed village with ground loot. So I turned ESP on for a chest, and I seen 2 chests there. And this room had a lot of players. Soon we end up reaching the 40k milestone marker. There's a few signs placed, no little milestone other than a lava cast. So I was going to continue, and I disconnected once again. Once I loaded back in, I continued my journey, and it happened again. And again. Eventually I just got off for a little bit until it was fixed, and I got back on. As of 2025, they ran out of stone for the highway, so I disconnected once again, and I came back and continued following the highway all the way up until I spotted this. I just used free cam, just an obsidian build right off at the side of the highway. I don't know whose it was or what it was intended to be, but it indeed just was sitting there untouched. Eventually we ended up running into a wither, and I was more worried about this wither than anything because he kept coming above the highway, and I didn't even notice the second wither that was right there all up until I was actually doing this voiceover. From here, this spot looked cool, seeing it with the shaders. Too bad it was laggy for y'all, unlike me. And I don't know if y'all see that, but there was a couple trails, so I decided to go over and follow the dirt trails and what they led to, and they led to what I want to say is a little dupe area, but I am not 100% sure. Y'all could let me know what y'all think it is. Of course, almost every build that I went to, I left a sign if I could. So I made my way back to the highway, and I don't know who placed webs on it. I ain't gonna lie, I did get stuck a couple times, but we end up reaching the 50k milestone marker. I had to do this. It was needed. Bye. So, it's 50k milestone marker didn't really have anything interesting. You had a couple signs right here, and you had some more around the portal. As we followed it down a little bit more, I wanted to call this area the corruption area because it was nothing but corrupted chunks all the way through this, and that was low-key cool to see. Nothing but corrupted chunks. Following the highway a bit more, I actually ended up running into this little hut that had a bed. So I decided I would sit and make my spawn point, so if I did die, I wasn't actually going all the way from spawn again, since that was the first bed that I actually encountered. And from here, it looks like the highway ended there, and someone started it again with obsidian correctly. So I thought the highway was going to be completed all the way through, but I was indeed wrong. Not much farther after that, I ended up running into a house with some signs, and reading the top one, why is Murph here? That was amazing to see, and I actually wasn't expecting that at all. Read the signs above the door, and decided to go in and check out what there was. There were some dogs, you had some furnaces with some heat, some chests with some food and supplies, along with some beds. I actually never checked out the upstairs. I should have, but I did not. If it is still standing, I will go and check it out. Eventually, we ended up running into this part of the highway that had hundreds of banners. And right after the banners, it went right to signs, and then banners, and then signs. And it went all the way like this, all the way up to the end of the highway. Eventually, after all the sign and banner placement, I ended up running into this little spot that said, "Take a kit, you'll need it," but it was empty. So I continued my journey just for it to be ended right there. And from here, I decided I would use boat fly and take it to 100K, since we're only 50K out and the goal was 100K. As I followed where the highway would be, I actually ended up running into the highway being rebuilt with what looked like a little bit of an active base nearby. So I decided to go in and go check it out. And there wasn't much here, but a lot of food, which works for a player if they didn't have anything. Making my way back up to this part of it, apparently this was the end of the highway as of 2 days ago now. Still making my way to 100K, I ended up coming across a cobblestone farm, which is still intact and is for the most part full, which is surprised to see, but not that surprised since the highway actually isn't built there. Making our way over to 69,000, there was a build there for whoever built the highway to 69,000. Cool little build with some designs, but nothing too much other than a little milestone marker that is still for the most part intact. Making our way down a little bit farther, I actually ended up running into a stash right off of the highway. So you guys have the cords now if you guys wanted to go and check it out. I ended up filling up half my e-chest of the kits just so that I had something on this account since it isn't all, and I continued my way over to 100,000. As I was flying, I ended up running into a few of these pods, and from the looks of it, there was about 4 other people going to 100,000 also. After I read the signs, I got in my boat and I continued my journey all the way there once again. Eventually, I ended up running into my first corrupted village, or floating village. Alright, so we're coming up on the end of the video. I want to say thank you to who made it to the end. I appreciate y'all coming and watching the videos and being a part of the channel. Let me know what highway you guys want to do next, and see y'all.